Very grateful to be here. Grateful for St. Bernard Parish Economic Development for letting us use this building and teaming up with us. And I'm very, very excited about our guest tonight, Mr. Ashley Vander Meulen. Did I get it right?
That was very good.
Nice. First try. So you are a 23-year veteran, inspector, licensed both Louisiana and Mississippi, one of the region's leading fortified home evaluators, wind mitigation expert. Is there anything that I missed on that list or you think we should add in?
Yeah, I do commercial buildings as well.
Oh, nice.
And 4-point inspections for new construction. I am also a moisture expert. I've done a lot of expert cases for moisture concerns when you can't find a problem. I'm good. I'm apparently good at that, is what they tell me. And then I'm also a stucco expert. So stucco has problems, but it's not the stucco. It's often the installation. So a lot of that's about techniques, but there's a lot of stucco out there.
Yeah. I don't have it in my notes, but remind me, I do want to pick your brain, whether it's in the interview or just one-on-one, about the moisture stuff. I feel like we've seen a lot of issues, some personally, but just hearing a lot about issues with raised houses, crawl spaces, and tons of moisture issues. And yeah, so I'd love to pick your brain on that.
Yeah. Moisture is king. Water wins.
Yeah, absolutely. So how'd you get into this field? How'd you get started?
Gosh, I started, I lived in Colorado, and there was a guy in Colorado that he was a successful insurance agent, and he left his business to go become a home inspector. And he did well. I mean, he was so busy, he looked like he was doing well. And then I lost my job in Colorado, and my wife wanted to come home, so I pursued becoming a home inspector in New Orleans in Louisiana, and it wasn't. I went to work for an engineering firm, Gertler Brothers, where it all began. And gosh, I guess I was an intern for 20 years with them, just hanging on to their coattails and learning everything I could.
Nice, fantastic. So I've heard you speak recently. I think Chamber of Commerce put on the home builders luncheon, I think it was maybe a couple months ago, and then you spoke at the Parish Council Chambers recently, right?
That's correct.
So there's no doubt we are in the middle of a severe insurance crisis, but having heard you speak, I've heard you speak with some optimism. Why is that? Where does that optimism come from?
Well, it comes from a tragic story because for me, Ida was awful. I literally lost 12 shingles, but I had $83,000 worth of damage on the inside of my house because I didn't have a secondary water barrier. And my insurance company left, threw me into the market. I went from $6,000 to $18,000 in 3 years, and I said there has to be a better way. So I started talking to some of my inspector friends of mine, and they said, no, wind mitigation is the answer. It's been around since '07. Never heard of it. And that's where this ball started rolling, because I was like, man, there has to be a better way. So I started going down that road, and Tim Temple coming into office, the changes the legislature has made, just the things that have happened since Ida. It's insanely optimistic. FORTIFIED has come into the market. They're doing very well, and that's where the optimism comes from, because they test everything and it's independent. So it's not a manufacturer saying this is what it is. It's a manufacturer saying this is what I think it is, and then somebody's independently verifying it. And had we had that independent verification after Katrina, we might not have been in the mess we're in for Ida, but carriers, in fairness to them, my experience was awful. I had to sue them, and fortunately for me, the carrier didn't go out of business. They just left Louisiana, but we were only able to recover about half. But many of these carriers stay in the market, but a lot had to go bankrupt because for every, and in fairness to them, We want low premiums and full coverage, and they want quantifiable risk. They want to be profitable. For every dollar that many of the carriers that went insolvent took in, they were spending $1.75. I mean, the federal government can't even sustain business like that. Maybe for a while, maybe they'll spend more money. I don't know how that works, but that's bad business in my mind. So it was all about finding a better way. I have thrown myself into wind mitigation because, frankly, home inspections was my primary business, and I quickly learned in 2021 when I went out on my own that we weren't just going to make it with home inspection. So I just started getting credential after credential. But no, the optimism comes from FORTIFIED and the changes, because the problem is we're second only to Florida in that we have an enormous amount of houses in the wind zone. All of Florida's houses are in the wind zone, but it's a newer state, a lot of new construction. We're an older state, a lot of old construction. And frankly, it's fair to the insurance company for them to know what code the house was built to, does it have clips, does it have hurricane protection, does it have the secondary barrier, because they can offer discounts. And I did a wind mitigation survey on my house, and I went from $18,000 to $11,000. So I did some of the upgrades. Well, $7,000, I had a lot of money to invest in the house to get this done. So we did that as well, and I saw the return on investment, and I said, well, this is a no-brainer. And then legislatively, things started falling into place. I became the chairman of the Wind Mitigation Task Force at the HBA. Wow. I started doing presentations with Jennifer Van Vranken to the civic associations, just trying to educate everybody on this is your house and what year it was built to, and if you do these upgrades, which basically equates to about 6 or 7 updates on an older home, you can actually bring it up beyond the 2021 building code. If you're building a new house, the 2021 building code is excellent. It actually has the majority of these upgrades already.
That was one of the things that I heard you say at that meeting that really it was one of my big takeaways. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said if you've been built after the 2021 code, right, that a wind mitigation survey likely isn't going to do a whole lot because you already have that discount built in because they're giving you credit for all those things.
Correct.
Right?
The carrier, the auditors know that in 2021 these things were in the building code in Louisiana, and if it's a permitted property, odds are they're there. So no, it won't help you much, but. Like my house, for example, was built in 1972, so I don't have any of those things. So like most of Louisiana, what the carriers did after Ida was took you to max policy, because there was no database, there was no information for the carrier to know when that roof was replaced, when the house was built, did it have these things or doesn't it? And it was like the Wild West. These folks were trying to make money on unknown. The wind mitigation survey levels that field, and I just got my hands on an insurance form from Farm Bureau, and they've really done their homework. Their new form is outstanding, and they're really going to be able to crunch their numbers and quantify their risk, and they've actually started writing in Louisiana again. So it's big. The change is coming. It's still a little ways away, and I'll just give you some numbers real fast. I'll try to remember them off the top of my head, but 677,000 homes in the wind zone. These are older homes. Some may be built after '07, but the majority are going to be older. And we need to get to 20% because real change occurred in Alabama and premiums went down when they got to 20% of the houses that had these wind mitigation upgrades. So for us, that's 135,000 homes. FORTIFIED, since the grant has been coming out, they've replaced 10,000 roofs in Louisiana. Well, if you do the math, it's going to take 45 years if we just do it with FORTIFIED. A wind mitigation surveyor going out to do the inspection, there's currently 29 or 30 of us. If I did 8 of those a day for a year and everybody else did that, we would get to 60,000 designations. And folks would then be able to say, well, if my carrier is going to give me some money off to put hurricane clips or to put the new roof with the secondary water barrier or to get a fortified roof, it may be worth me spending a little money right now, because for me, the return was easy.
Yeah, and that was the other big takeaway that I heard you say, is that there was this critical mass that we needed to get to, right? And if we got to that 20%, all of us would benefit, right?
Yes.
Individually, you get a fortified roof or a wind mitigation survey and you benefit. 20% of us do it, we all benefit, right?
Without a doubt.
That's really impactful, because I think one of the changes you're probably going to talk about here shortly is the re-roof permit requirements now.
Yes.
And I remember when they first started talking about that, admittedly, I was against it. I was like, wait a second, now it's going to cost me more money when I put a roof on a rental property. Like, hang on. Mm-hmm. But now, hear you talk about this compounding effect, right? This critical mass.
Yes.
It makes sense, and I'm completely 180 degrees the other way. I think it makes
No,
a lot of sense.
it's now state law in Louisiana. If you change your roof, you have to get a permit. And where the change is immense is an older home, you were grandfathered in, you did not have to meet the current code. Well, in the case of a roof, now you do. And that's huge, because grandfathering has gone away. And frankly, it needs to in the case of a roof, because if it's the first line of defense. Had I had a secondary water barrier, I'd have replaced 12 shingles, and my wife and I would have gotten along a lot better that year.
And from what I've heard, I think the quote that I heard in terms of the new code requirements for roofs are, I think the way he said it was, a whisper away from fortified.
Yes.
Right? Like, if you're doing a new roof, the code requirements are so close, you just almost might as well do a fortified roof, right?
And so there's big differences between fortified and code. And when I say fortified, it is meeting their standard 100%. If you meet it 100%, you get their certificate. If you do not get their certificate. They have literally denied it for missing a picture. The roofer had to go back, pull the roof shingles up to prove he indeed did that. So they want the verification. Insurance companies love that because it's credible, right?
Yeah.
That's where the wind mitigation surveyor can do that with code. And unlike fortified, meeting at 100%, you got three choices: roof, silver, or gold. Roof is fairly easy. Most houses in Louisiana are going to make it, but they have criteria. So older houses should do a pre-qualification inspection to see if they meet it. And if they don't, they have to consider if they're going to spend the money to meet it, or if they're going to do the code roof replacement, which is very good. And roof is very, very close, or the building code is very, very close to fortified now. You have to have the secondary barrier. You have to use the better roof shingles. There's a difference in the drip edge. Fortified wants a 26 gauge drip edge. Code says 24. Fortified wants nails every 4 inches in the drip edge. Code says 12. The plywood, fortified wants nails every 4 inches apart. Code says 6 inches apart. But code now requires ring shank nails. So what's happening is fortified is changing the codes. I actually think the 2024 code is going to be duplicate of the fortified roof standard. But all the cost in meeting the fortified standard is in fortified silver. It's the impact protection on your glass. Florida has solved that issue with something called the hurricane fabric. It's a ballistic nylon, and it's tear resistant and impact resistant. And even if a tree limb goes through it and it shatters the window behind it, you're still going to have a tiny hole in the fabric, and it's going to take a minute for the house to equalize to the outside pressure. Right now, if that window breaks, it's almost an instant where the 150 miles an hour blowing around the building during the hurricane is going to instantaneously occur in the building. That's where catastrophic loss occurs. That's where we have buildings and homes we can't return to after a hurricane. That's what the fabric does. It protects all the openings. You can also get impact glass. They have shutters. LAS makes them. They've made them for years, decades actually. But now there's a testing procedure. If it's a metal shutter, it'll make it. If it's a corrugated plastic and it's thick enough, it'll make the test. It's basically a missile D test where they shoot a projectile that I think weighs 9 pounds and at 20 miles an hour, and if it doesn't break, you pass the test. And there's some variations in that, and don't hold me to the numbers exactly, but there's a process now, and the carriers love it because it's credible. And the state has now, the legislator passed the database, which is huge. All the fortified certificates, the homeowners can give those to the state, goes into the database. So now the carrier knows it's a new roof, they know they have fortified, they know it has the secondary barrier. We check all kinds of boxes. And then if you do the code roof replacement, same thing. The wind mitigation survey is going to check all kinds of boxes, and it's going to go into that database. So now the carriers are going to have a searchable database in Louisiana to quantify their risk, which is huge because we have, I think, 13 parishes on the coast. Alabama has 2. So in the case of the carrier, Alabama, it's easy for the carrier to offset their risk in Alabama because most of the population is not in the wind zone. In Louisiana, we're flipped. We're very similar to Florida. Florida still hasn't figured this out. I actually think Louisiana is going to pass them up because they can't seem to come to terms with this. And nobody knows the answers just yet.
And you talked about insurance companies and profitability, and one statistic I heard from Tim Temple, right? He came and did a town hall meeting here probably about a year ago now, and he said that most insurance companies were still in the red from Katrina when Ida hit. Like that just show, like we have this picture in our heads of these greedy, evil insurance companies,
Right.
which in some cases they are, but the fact that they weren't even profitable still from Katrina when Ida hit, and then put it backwards again.
Well, and in terms of discounts, the homeowner has to do some homework. They kind of got to know what's going on. In my case, I went to max policy. I was at $18,000, so my discount was huge, but I was still paying double with the discount of what I was paying a year ago.
Yeah.
So the numbers were big, but like older folks that have had a State Farm policy or a Farm Bureau policy for 20 years, those companies actually did a very good job in not raising premiums. And you may not get as big of a discount, but you have a much lower premium at the beginning. Yeah. And a lot of folks take advantage of multiple discounts. Like if you have your car insurance, you might save 15%. Well, when the carrier files their rates, they file it at a maximum discount. So no matter what you have on your house, they're only going to give you 40 or 50% off the entire policy. So if you have 15% already off, the max you can save for doing these upgrades is 35%. But there's only so much because the carriers every year have to file these discounts with the state. And great news, if you go to LDI's website, there are discounts by carrier that are published on LDI's website for fortified. So you can, if you get a fortified roof and you have that carrier, you might realize those savings. They have done the same thing for wind mitigation surveys. And if you look at those two forms, fortified has 3 discounts: roof, silver, and gold. Wind mitigation, you'll see, has 5. So you can actually stack those and you can get to the 50% that folks are getting with fortified. But the homeowners got to do their homework. They got to know what they have. It starts with the wind mitigation survey. When I do one of those, I tell what the house has, and I fill out a form. You give that to the carrier. If there's discounts available, they'll give them to you. But more importantly, what it does is if you don't have those upgrades in your house, I tell you what you can do about it and how to get those. And then you can start asking the right questions at least. If I add hurricane clips, can I save some money? But all of those upgrades are peace of mind because if you have a fortified gold home, Fortified has proven it time and time again with their data that those homes survive the hurricanes. I've seen it in Grand Isle. I've seen it at Mexico Beach in Florida. and you can see houses that are leveled, and you see the fortified gold homes that are there. Now, with code, you're not going to make fortified gold, but you can get right there. You can get very, very comparable protection on your older home, because odds are most homes in Louisiana that are already built are not going to meet silver or gold unless you got them.
And anecdotally, we saw that here in Arabi as well, right? That tornado came through, and there was a very clear difference in the older 1960s slab homes and what damage they took versus the newer construction. Obviously, the anomaly is, stuff flies through, right? But you could tell, there was a clear pattern of the difference of how those handled that tornado. It was pretty.
No, yeah, without a doubt. And speaking of tornadoes, we don't build for tornadoes. We build for hurricanes. I mean, you have to keep in mind that everything we're talking about is up to 130 miles an hour. Anything beyond that, kind of all bets are off. Even a fortified gold home has its limit. There's some point it fails. And all the tests we have, it's funny, is up to 130 miles an hour because of IBHS, the purveyors of fortified, built a state-of-the-art facility that has fans that generates 130 miles an hour in their building. I'd imagine maybe they'll update the fans and get 150 one of these days. I don't know. I mean, we're going to have to keep moving forward, I guess.
Yeah, and one of the other big takeaways, hearing you speak a couple of times, is it seems that there's this perception of if I want to save money on insurance, I have to go out and spend $15,000, $20,000 on a fortified roof. It's this very binary. I'm either stuck with what I have, or I have to spend tens of thousands of dollars for a fortified roof. What I like about the wind mitigation survey is it's this gray area in the middle. Hey, you might not save as much, but there are options where you could spend relatively little amounts of money and still see savings on your insurance, right?
Correct. So the difference between fortified and wind mitigation or code upgrades is code upgrades are component based. So for older homes, that's outstanding because you can pick and choose what you want to do. And I'm actually going to do a presentation in the beginning of December for GOSEP, the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, and I actually have contractors working on prices on certain homes because, man, the real estate sites are great these days. You get like 100 pictures of the house, and I found a whole bunch of agents that are doing Matterports of the house. You have a Matterport of the house, you can start taking dimensions and measure stuff. So I found some with a Matterport, and these guys haven't even gone out to the house yet, and they're giving me numbers for replacing it. So fortified has a high initial entry fee. Average cost to replace a roof in Louisiana is $16,000. That's where fortified starts. You got to replace the roof. You can get, there's one exception with a spray foam solution if you have 100% access to the underside of the attic. That solution on a smaller house, you might get $6,000 or $8,000 on, but it's still a high entry fee. Hurricane clips, you can take, in a lot of cases like Chalmette homes and Metairie homes, the sheetrock makes the 90 degree at the top plate and the ceiling joist, so you can't add hurricane clips. But you can take the soffits off of those homes and put them on from the outside, because the overhangs are below the bottom or below the top plate in most cases. You got to do a test case because there's always exceptions, but if you can do that, it's much less, because particularly if it's vinyl siding, the contractor can come up, pull the vinyl in a day, get the hurricane clips on in another day, and I think $750 is still the cost per day for a couple guys and a contractor. So for $1,500, and I don't want to quote contractor prices because there's always variables, but you can see it's a much lower cost of entry. Doing the hurricane fabric, rather than spending, average cost of a windows, double pane vinyl is a couple $100, right? If you get impact, you're going to spend $1,000. So in the middle, for a couple $100 more, you can get this hurricane fabric per window. It's less than the cost of, replacing the window, and it meets the same standard. Or you can get corrugated panels, and there's many companies that custom fit those. And those, at I don't know, 15 to 20 windows a house, $3,000 to $5,000, we get the fabric on a lot of homes. And that's very big protection. Now, in the case of the roof, the code roof also requires replacement because you got to get the secondary water barrier under it. So you usually got to take the shingles off to do that. So the roof has a high entry cost. But with the component-based parts of wind mitigation, you don't have to spend as much. One of the biggest discounts carriers give is when you have a hip roof. Hip roofs are great at deflecting wind. Odds are that house is going to make it. When you have a gable, up until recently, those walls were never framed very well. They were really just thought to hold siding. Well, when the wind blows, they fail. And when they fail, the roof blows off. So if you have a gable roof and you have access to your attic, you can brace the gable. And that's some 2x4s and a couple guys in a day. So, you know, for $500 or $100 or $1,000, you can brace a couple gables in a day. And that gives you the same discount as a hip roof. A braced gable is great because it resists that inward movement from the wind, and it also prevents that outward movement, or the pressure movement most folks call it, when the window breaks, because the wind comes in and it's going to push up on the structure. This is concrete, so it's going to do fine. It's going to blow the windows out on the other side.
No, and that's huge. I remember you saying that the gable bracing, that's huge because it's something that, like you said, it's so simple, you know what I mean? So relatively easy, relatively inexpensive, and that I think that's the main message that I appreciate you communicating, that, hey, there are ways to do this affordably, right? If you are a rental property owner and you're sitting here with 20, 30 houses, you're doing the math, you're like, geez, I gotta spend $15,000 on every house, you know, but there are things that you can do to save money on insurance that aren't dropping, you know, $15,000.
Correct. The component based on the old house is very exciting, and that's what made me optimistic, because I was like, man, I started with FORTIFIED, and I was like, oh gosh, I mean, you know, what do I need to do to make their standards? And then I started looking at wind mitigation, and I was like, well, this is far better for older homes. So I think Louisiana is going to have a mixed solution. I think the grant is going to continue moving forward with FORTIFIED roofs. You'll still continue to get the $10,000. And what LDI has done is they have put a fee on the insurance carriers for doing business, because apparently there are a lot that have policies in Louisiana. And they're going to raise $30 million next year, so the taxpayers are going to stop paying for it. And this fee is not much on the carrier, so we shouldn't see any effect on rates.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a lot that came out of this legislative session. We actually we were supposed to have Tim Temple come back in, I don't remember what it was, but he had to send someone from his office, and man, there was a ton during this legislative session that got passed in regards to all this. I know I think they did like a $15,000 tax credit or something if you put a FORTIFIED roof on. Does that sound right?
Yeah, so there is, I call it the Write Your Own grant. If you replace your roof to the FORTIFIED standards after July of 2025, when you file your taxes, you can get up to $10,000, and it's a direct tax credit. So if you and you can reclaim it over 3 years. So let's say you pay the state $1,500 a year, where you're only going to recoup $4,500. But if you're paying the state over $3,000 a year in income taxes, in 3 years you're going to recoup the full $10,000. But I learned something recently on that the state has only put $15 million aside for that program. So you need to file fast to get the money.
Interesting.
So it reminded me of the solar panel stuff. You remember how we all were going to get solar panel credits, and then the state goes, no man, we're out of money. That program is not funded anymore. And you're like, well, wait a minute, I just spent all this money. What do you mean? You know, so there's limitations in everything, and homeowners need to do their homework.
Yeah, for sure. And these discounts, whether it be FORTIFIED or wind mitigation, if Chase is a homeowner and he's doing this stuff to his personal home, I'm doing it on a rental property, is there a major difference there? Do we see the same benefit, whether it's a rental versus primary residence? Or?
Well, so most carriers will give the discount for primary residences. Rental properties, maybe not. It's predominantly for primary residences. Like for you to get the FORTIFIED grant for $10,000, it has to be your primary residence. You can't get it on a rental property.
But like
So
the other,
there's some limitations there for investors, unfortunately. But investor may have a commercial blanket policy, and we've seen a lot of changes in the commercial world as well, and the commercial carriers are not as tuned in as the residential carriers are. And then when you do fortified commercial or fortified multifamily, it's a completely different program. Like there's only 2 engineers in the country that would do that. Like a building like this would fall under fortified commercial. You know, a townhouse development or an apartment complex would fall under fortified multifamily. So that's where the opportunities lie for the investors.
right.
You know, in those programs. But the cost of entry for those are very high, but I mean, you could be talking $100,000 insurance policy as well, in some, you know, and what you're spending on some of these buildings.
Right, absolutely. If someone in the room is looking at renovating a property or building a property, what are some of the low-hanging fruit things where you're like, hey, listen, if you're about to build, renovate, you know, or put a new roof on, these are the non-negotiables. It doesn't make sense to not do them. Like most savings for the least effort or money.
Yeah,
is there anything that stands out?
Hands down, you replace the roof. The secondary water barrier is a must. Whether you go fortified or not, it's a no-brainer. There's actually very little cost you're paying the difference in materials. It's the same labor to put down felt paper as it is to put down an ice and water shield. You're just paying another $100 a roll for that ice and water shield. So the costs are not that much more. It's easy to justify because even if you don't get a discount, if your roof shingles blow off, you're not going to have to replace all the damage inside of the house. I mean, the sheetrock fell in my house, the power went out, the shop vac stopped working, we ran out of towels, and we just watched it rain. Because over my house, Ida was a 5-hour rain event.
Wow.
Yeah, so we just, you know, after 2 hours, the fight was over. There was nothing we could do.
That's got to be painful. Just watching it happen.
Yeah.
So that's good. Anything else stand out in terms of, hey, this is, if you were an investor, either remodeling or building from scratch, non-negotiable, it doesn't make any sense to not do these things.
Brace the gables. Brace the gables, secondary water barrier. If you're gutting it, add the continuous load path. You know, on a raised house built before 2000, you're not going to get the sill connected to the piers, but you can run that whole load path up the wood, which actually makes it exponentially stronger.
Interesting. Okay.
You know, because the continuous load path is all the way down to the ground. So it's very easy to put a rod into the concrete when it's wet. It's very difficult to do that once it's dry. You know, so in the case of an older home, if you're gutting it, the continuous load path would be the way to go. And then if you have the hip roof, and you know, the next best thing would be the hurricane fabric, putting that on the property, because that really has shown that you don't break the window so you don't get the catastrophic loss. Like Fortified has this great video on their website that shows their fortified home and a home next to it, and they put it in their wind tunnel, and the home that's not built to fortified collapses. But it didn't collapse until the front door opened. That's when the pressure equalizes instantaneously. My wife's grandfather called it a train effect because he was here for Hurricane Betsy. You know, and he said a window broke, and he said our roof didn't blow off, but you just heard this train in your house, and you know, you ran for the middle of the house.
Yeah.
You know.
Let's say an investor's buying a property with an older roof. If that were you, what would your decision-making process be in your head in terms of evaluating, should I put a fortified roof on versus leave it? Like what mental models would you walk through thinking through that decision?
Yeah, if it's an older roof, odds are the carriers aren't going to cover you. If it's over 10 years old, it's questionable. If it's over 15 years old, I would say probably not. which raises great questions for all of us 15 years down the road, because my house had a Katrina roof on it. You know, the shingles today are far better than those older shingles, so we'll see if they don't get dry and brittle, the asphalt may have a chance of adhering. And most of these newer shingles are polymer based, not asphalt based, so that's promising as well. Technology is going to win the battle. But yes, I would absolutely start with the roof. If it's older, I would consider going fortified. There's some big obstacles for fortified. If the rafter spacing's more than 24 inches, you're going to have to do some modifications to get the fortified certificate. If you have a slab foundation, odds are you're going to make it. But if you have a raised foundation and it's dry stacked, meaning concrete blocks are stacked, or you know that concrete deck pier that a lot of folks use on low-end construction, that's not going to make fortified. Uptown, there's a lot of folks who level their houses themselves. You know, they get the car jack, they level it up, and they put a bunch of shims. Well, that bunch of shims disqualifies you for fortified, because there's no lateral prevention. So the house literally blows off its foundation, which doesn't matter if you have a fortified roof or not, if it slides off of a raised foundation, right?
So that would stop you from getting the credit for the fortified roof, or for the fortified silver or gold?
You couldn't get, you wouldn't get fortified roof.
Oh, really?
Yes. In order for you to get fortified silver, you have to get roof. Their program builds. If you want gold, you're meeting everything fortified has 100%.
But I could still get a fortified roof with the foundation types issue. No, not even that.
You can't even get that. So the person has to modify their foundation, and in some cases that's $30,000 or $50,000, and that throws everything out the window. You know, at that point, it doesn't cost justify itself. So there's a lot of those obstacles. Uptown, I run into that quite a bit, where it's multiple shims, but they get a foundation person out there, and it's a couple $1,000 because it's only 5 or 10 piers, right? The piers are mortared, but they just have the shims. But it has to be addressed, and that was one of the big changes in fortified in the 2025 standards. As an evaluator now, I have to take pictures of each side of the foundation from outside and underneath. So they are absolutely cracking down on that. If you have, like a lot of our houses have that dimensional lumber or those 1-bys with the gaps. If the gaps are bigger than an eighth, you might have to put plywood down, which increases the cost of your roof for $6,000 or $7,000, because of the cost of the plywood at $90 a sheet. And what my neighbor did was he priced fortified. He had gaps that ranged, an eighth of an inch to a quarter of an inch, and he opted to do the code replacement because it was less for him, and basically they allow you to put the ice and water shield directly over that dimensional lumber, and he put his shingles, so he didn't have to put the plywood. But if he was going to get the fortified certificate, he would have had to change it. And fortified has changed their standard in 2025 as a result of that. So if the shingle manufacturer says that their shingle can go on a roof deck that has 1/4 of an inch or less, then they will approve it, and you don't have to put the fortified. You don't have to put the plywood.
Really?
So it's a big change. Yeah. And that opens the door for more designations of fortified, because they were losing quite a bit in that scenario. And I mean, frankly, they want designations as well, because they're a nonprofit, but they got to raise money for research too. So.
You mentioned Florida and Alabama, and how we were on a similar trajectory, right? Like they kind of went ahead of us and started this a little bit earlier. Where are we on that curve to where we can start? How far out do you expect to start seeing some meaningful progress?
So if you do the math on the 135,000, I think the fastest we can get there is a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
But it would require a lot of folks doing a lot of work. And, I still think we're a couple years out, but one of the things we're trying with the governor's office presentation and with LDI is, how do we start educating folks? Because I mean, everyone's insanely resilient down here, and they really want lower insurance premiums, and we do that by getting competition back. So I think there's a lot of folks in a position to handle this, but you throw the slow economy on top of it, you throw slow real estate. I mean, it's, you know, at what point does all of this start shaking loose? And time will tell. But I think we can get out of it in a couple of years, but it takes all of us to get there. And you know, maybe it's a little further out than that.
It does so far seem like a pretty good concerted effort, right? And this is what it's going to take between the government stepping in, adding some incentives, helping out private entities, and then just normal citizens, right? It seems so far like we kind of have buy-in from all three parties, which without that, I think it's going to be a very long road.
Yeah, correct. And I see Tim Temple's office and the legislator working out a bunch. I see homeowners doing a lot of repairs. You know, and I see carriers giving discounts. So if the carriers incentivize these repairs, which the wind mitigation survey makes them known, and it works well for an older home, and you literally have 6 or 7 upgrades that if you do, you bring it insanely close to the 2021 building code. And that is great discounts, because a new home built to the 2021 standard is very close to fortified gold. It's not there. Fortified in all cases is above code. You know, but Louisiana, we just got a nod nationally. Florida's score was like 98.8. Louisiana's score was 98.4. Boca, what's the name of that? There was a councilman out of St. Bernard who was all over the. I cannot remember the acronym. Yes, Randall. What did he work on with the flood insurance program? And St. Bernard is getting an enormous discount on flood insurance because of that program.
Classification that they've been working on for years. He literally just BSEG.
BSEG.
Yeah.
So in the BSEG world, Louisiana is very close to Florida because we've adopted the 2021 code, we've adopted the latest flood standards, we've adopted the latest 2021 commercial IBC, International Building Code, you know, and that's second only to Florida in our region. You know, all of that goes into where we all benefit, because Jefferson Parish has a very good score in that regard too, and they're going to see a 25% discount in flood insurance rates for everybody. And I think St. Bernard's going to be in the same boat. And it's all our levee protection, all that work at the Mr. Go. I mean, that, you know.
That's great news. As a LSU fan, I don't like to be behind Florida in anything, but I guess we can continue to strive forward.
With these new changes and wind mitigation, because if we can get the state to incentivize that like they do Fortified, and then the carriers start making very clear and definitive discounts for those homes. I mean, the problem is the insurance carriers come in and they don't want to write below I-12. I-10, that's where the wind zone is. But if we could show these upgrades, or at least show a path, you know, oh my gosh, we've got 20,000 homes now in Jefferson Parish, or in or 10,000 in St. Bernard, the carrier will go, we'll take that risk in those zip codes if the houses have these things. Well, that brings them back into the market. Doesn't matter to what degree, they're back in, and when they're coming back in, premiums are going to start dropping because competition wins. We've seen it all the time in the business world.
Yeah, I think Ryan's super excited about that, and I don't know if I don't think they've officially published everything out, but yeah, some of the data he's been talking about is incredible, and I think it'd be good to get him and maybe some other folks from government into this forum to talk about it, because he says once everything's finalized, we have, I think, a good chance of being one of the highest rated in the entire region down here.
That's right.
It's very, very exciting news for St. Bernard Parish. I'm glad you remember that.
No, that was that's what I learned when I came down, because I met Ryan that time, and man, he gave a great presentation as well, and I learned an important tie in there that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, I think he and Gillis and maybe Cindy have been working hard on that. And I guess as we start to land the plane, I want to make sure I give some time in case anybody has questions in the audience. But as we start to land the plane here, what are maybe some myths or misconceptions that you hear about, whether it's fortified, wind mitigation, things that you hear that aren't necessarily accurate, positive or negative? Like, for example, mine, I didn't think that the myth that I had in my head that you just debunked was the roof is the only thing that matters for a fortified roof. I had no idea that they're looking at foundation and other elements of the house. I thought it was just decking, nails, underlayment, you know what I mean, and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess there's a lot of myth with contractors, you know, because roofing contractors, they've kind of had carte blanche, and it's been an enormous education curve. Some are willing, some are not. The younger folks seem to be picking up quicker than the older folks. You know, the guy that says, I've done it this way for 30 years. Well, he's kind of a dinosaur. He needs to go. He needs to move on or learn, because it's that important to us.
Yeah, that's good.
But no, I mean, no, off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of any. I'm sure I'll think of a few driving home now.
Yeah, absolutely. What about y'all? Any questions from any of y'all?